board meeting. Please rise if you can. Ms. Kupko will say the invocation and Mr. Miller will do the pledge. Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together here this evening to conduct the important business of our community. Please watch over all who gather here and grant us travel mercies as we return to our homes. And we especially thank you for the continued healing that allows our colleague to join us here this evening. Please continue to watch over all of us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, sir. The amendment that we're proposing is pertaining to item number 04-03 pertaining to the agreement for the purchase of property for the Dahlgren Fire Station. We're proposing to change the board packet item, the board report, to add to the recommended action. We are asking that if a majority approves the resolution, a second action item is recommended to transfer funds to cover the full estimated costs of the acquisition, including closing and subdivision costs. And then down below that item, to cover the expected cost of the acquisition, the amount of $353,000 could be funded by following transfers of or reappropriations. One, transfer 125 from the project 4-302-094133-8212 for EMS facilities to 4-302-094131-8212 for EMS fire station replacement. And then two, appropriate an additional $133,000 from CIP to 4-302-094131-8212 to complete the acquisition of the property. And I do believe that this information is included in the information that is at your desk. Is an updated board packet. That's all we are asking.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to amend the agenda as suggested.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item will be county officials' reports. Mr. Miller?
No, I believe we have, I think we have public comment, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Public comment. Comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If the comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of public hearing. So. Mr. Stroud? Thank you, sir. You've got 3 minutes. Please, next time, if you want to approach the board, please come to Mr. Dines with the information. He'll bring it forward to us. Thank you.
Sure. Ken Stroud, 5405 Kings Highway, King George, Virginia. I'm speaking with you tonight pertaining to the restricting of agricultural operations in a proposed King George zoning ordinance update by the Berkeley Group. Currently, the proposed zoning ordinance table 6-1 use matrix has a meat processing facility under use by special exception only, not by right. conflicting with the state code. Additionally, the ordinance includes section 7-2-6 meat processing facility, which is not required and conflicts with state policy. The slaughtering of livestock and meat processing according to the Virginia State Code are agricultural operations and are encouraged under the state policy 3.2108.2 expansion of the Commonwealth slaughter and meat processing facilities and protected by 3.2-301 right to farm restrictive ordinances. As such, they are covered under the county's agricultural silvicultural provision, the first line in the proposed zoning ordinance use matrix, table 6-1. And there is no need to list meat processing facilities separately or to have contents of section 7-2-6 meat processing facility, which contains several limitations on property owners in direct conflict with the state code. This section must be removed from the county's ordinance. Please note, Virginia State Code 3.2-301 right to farm restrictive ordinances states, I quote, "No locality shall adopt any ordinance that requires that a special exception or special use permit be obtained for any production, agricultural or silviculture activity in an area that is zoned as an agricultural district or classification. Additionally, no locality shall enact zoning ordinances that would unreasonably restrict or regulate farm structures or farming or forestry practices in an agricultural district or classification unless restrictions bear a relationship to the health, safety, or general welfare of its citizens. The slaughter of livestock and meat processing are necessary means for ranchers and farmers to produce meat for their families and as a source of revenue, which benefits them as well as the county. These are practices that have been performed here since the existence of county, and to limit them without cause and in conflict with state policy diminishes our citizens' rights, limits their ability to feed their family and produce revenue due to the loss of the ability to sell their meat processed. I request that the Board of Supervisors direct the zoning authority to remove these restrictions from the zoning ordinance to protect the rights and liberties of the King George citizens to use their property and livestock as our God and forefathers intended and to avoid conflicting with state law. The section 7-2-6 must be removed. It is in direct conflict with the Virginia state policy of encouraging agricultural operations, specifically encouraging, expanding, and developing slaughter and meat processing facilities. It goes so far as to limit the number of customers per day to a facility to 5, and that no equipment trailers can be visible from a right-of-way. I'll point this out to demonstrate that our county is overly restrictive and places undue restrictions on its residents in conflict with the state protections of individual rights.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Kim Clark, Fairfax Drive, King George, Virginia. I want to talk about the opioid abatement settlement funding. The totality of the Commonwealth of Virginia of 133 counties and cities jointly sued the drug manufacturing companies for the abatement of opioid use. As of January, abuse and use, as of January 19th, 2023, the payment allotment to date was $21.018 billion. Of those funds, King George was awarded 0.0306% of the percentage rate via the MOU. To those counties that create cooperative partnerships between counties meeting the OAA Gold Star Standard, i.e. therapeutic, successful forms of rehabilitation services, those counties would be awarded an additional funds upwards up to 35% on top of the MOU designated allotment. Now, I estimate that King George allotment based on the OAA/MOU awarding of about $964,000 per year for 18 years. And again, that's conservative. It's liable to go up even more. With pyramid in our community, that awardment can be over $1 million for a period of 18 years. My question to the supervisors: when did you know that the opioid abatement funding was in direct correlation with the Pyramid Rehab Center? Supervisors, do you understand that all funds allotted must be forwarded to the operating entity provided by the OAA and approved by the OAA? So in this in this essence, King George would be sending financing to Pyramid for operations. Please note that King George has no direct equity to these funds. I also confirmed this with the with a conversation with the executive director of Tony McDowell of the OAA. See the attached paperwork. Based on those requirements, both cooperative partnerships and the selective demographic locating yielding the highest monetary return for the OAA funding, the placement of Pyramid doesn't feel like a coincidence. It appears that Owen Drive was selected based on the demographics, the social economic, and the location, leaving the by right clause or argument premeditated. I surmise, let us use said funds to strengthen the non-for-profit organizations that are pre-existing towards those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Hopefully I can talk about it some more next time.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Julie Edgar. I live at 4250 Stafford Lane, King George. I want to talk about the micro winery or the commercial winery that we're trying to open. We did go to the planning committee meeting 2 weeks ago, last week, I'm not sure. And to me, it was a debacle. There was conflict of interest. People were getting off track. They were more concerned about, well, how big is a barrel? And, is there going to be a noise ordinance? We're just looking, I just want to compare this to either a bakery or like an ice cream parlor. You go there, you own it, you purchase your ingredients from somewhere else, and you make your stuff right there on the property. The barrels are 59 gallons, by the way. That's average for the wine industry. But you just make it there, you purchase your stuff from elsewhere. You make it there, you sell it there. You have a couple little bistro tables. All of the noise is contained inside. If you have piped in music, you have piped in music. There's nothing else going on. People taste, people might have a glass of wine. They purchase their bottles. They don't even have to taste, they can just purchase. It's just, like I said, I just want both the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission to kind of be on the same page as what we want to do, and like I said, that's pretty much all it is. You have the little bistro tables. You can sell cheese and crackers, that's not prepared. Nobody's cooking. You can bring your own stuff and eat it there with your wine. It's just like going to any other winery that's a farm winery, and you bring your own food and you eat it there and you drink their wine. You can't bring in anybody else's wine. We can't sell anybody else's stuff. It's not a bar, which is where this whole thing, the debacle came in, and it's like, it's not a bar. Maybe if the place allows, you can have a couple of little bistro tables outside. There's no music piped outside. It's just people sitting at a couple little bistro tables. You come up to a counter and you taste. And anyway, and that's pretty much it. It's not a bar. It's not a nightclub. We're not selling any other kind of spirits. Everything is, once we get approved, everything then has to go through ABC. And they've got their own set of rules and laws and everything else that you have to abide by. So I just wanted to put it out there that it is not a bar. It's not a restaurant. There's no cooking there other than the wine itself, if you want to call that cooking. But that's it. Short, sweet, and to the point. And we would just love to do that and get the tourism and get on the Northern Neck Wine Trail and just just open it up to, people that want to come and don't necessarily want to stay outside, and they can just be inside and be comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is John Edgar. I live at 4250 Stafford Lane here in King George. I'm going to continue a little bit with what my wife was trying to talk about. I was concerned with some of the questions that came up in the planning meeting last week. I'd like to go over some of those items now. One area that they were stuck on was defining the size of a barrel. The standard or average barrel sizes for wine, cider, whiskey, bourbon, and beer are 59 gallons for wine, 43 gallons for cider, 53 gallons for whiskey or bourbon, and 42 gallons per keg for beer. I do not know the proper way of making all the different types of cider, beer, or distilled products, but I do know that not all wines are made using barrels. Some of the wines I make are made in glass and or stainless steel. Maybe a better way of representing the quantity of each product being made is to take the number of barrels mentioned in the proposed ordinance change and multiplying it by the standard number of gallons for each product. As an example, 5,000 barrels times 59 gallons for wine. There was also mention of being able to have a microbrewery in a location that would allow for guests to be seated outside at tables and such with entertainment. Mention of noise ordinance was brought up several times. I have not seen any microbreweries that do this on their own. The ones I've seen are located on farm wineries and enjoy the benefits of entertainment they provide. Our plan for our micro winery is not to have this type of entertainment. All our functions will be provided indoors. Another area of concern that was mentioned at the planning meeting was the ability to sell alcoholic beverages from other vendors during turning the facility into a bar. This is not our intentions for a micro winery. We are looking for the ability to have clients taste the wines we produce from grapes and juices sourced not only from Virginia, but also from around the world. Purchase those wines and to be able to sell them with certain food items while in our facility enjoying the wines. We would also like the ability to provide the sale of wines by online purchase, requiring the shipping of the wines to different locations. The sale of these items will be governed by the ABC, as the products would all have to be licensed for sale. It is also my understanding that for wineries, micro, commercial, and farm, each product sold must have the labels approved by the ABC and proper fees paid for each label. Each of the different micro locations, winery, cidery, distillery, and brewery, should be able to sell ancillary products such as cheeses, bread, crackers, and even cured meats to help while consuming the alcohol products. These facilities should also be able to sell other non-alcoholic based products such as, but not limited to, soup mixes, hot sauces, winemaking products, and supplies. Another area where the planning commission was hung up on was whether to allow these facilities in the C2 location. I believe that Highmark Brew is currently located in a C2 area near Vinnie's. Please do not limit the ability of establishment using C1 or C2 locations. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Adam Simonov, 5340 Gordon Drive, King George. Today I rise to address public safety for roads near the Governor Nice Bridge on US 301. Now that the new Governor Nice Bridge is open, King George County should reopen our only swimmable public beach at Dahlgren Wayside. The new Governor Nice Bridge brings unyielding 50-mile-an-hour traffic on US 301 past the Dahlgren Heritage Museum and Dahlgren Wayside at Roseland Road and Barnesfield Park. Traffic signals or bypass exit ramps should provide safe ingress and egress to our Potomac riverfront recreational areas before foreseeable accidents occur. Maryland plans to install north and southbound bicycle sharing lanes on the Governor Nice Bridge, which carries the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail into Virginia, joining Dahlgren Wayside, Barnesfield Park, Caledon State Parks, Potomac Heritage Bicycle Trail, and the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail. Therefore, VDOT must also install pedestrian crossovers or crosswalks and traffic signals so bicyclists may cross US 301 to access the bridge in our riverfront recreational areas. Our King George Potomac Riverside recreational areas provides venues for concerts, softball tournaments, runs, basketball, swimming, fishing, picnics, hiking, and walking for all ages. This area must be easily accessible as both a quality of life asset and a tourist attraction for everyone to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. I was waiting for you, Ms. Level.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ana Maria Lobor. I live in Presidential Lakes. Well, I am very happy to see you, Mr. Collins, back. I hope you're feeling all right. But also, I'm a little tired. I didn't write a lot because I worked today as a hostess in the garden week. I think was very successful this garden tour. Also, a special thank you for those who make a significant contributions to the 2023 tour. Also, I came tonight to thank you for the service to the community. The people of King George elected you to make good decisions for the county, especially when it comes to taxes and other problems. I want to ask the supervisors if you've been helping Mrs. Kapka to get ready of the decal. It's okay to charge one-time fee because it's needed for the landfill, but charging once over and over again is not very nice. I don't know if you helping her or I've been telling you for a long time this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Dines?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So we'll move on along to the reports of the board members. Ms. Bender?
Yes, Mr. Collins, welcome back. I'm very happy you're with us today and chairing the meeting. I got a couple of things here, so I'm gonna try to go through one by one. I was reached out to by a citizen who formerly was running for the Board of Supervisors who had asked previously if he could serve on the Citizen Budget Advisory Committee. So I would like to nominate Mr. Anthony Stats to be the Shiloh representative of the Citizen Advisory Committee.
If that's a motion, I'll second.
Yes.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Simonoff, you had mentioned about the new bridge in Wayside Park. I'm sure the Wayside Park, from what I remember, Ms. Lackey could correct me a little bit on this, is all the demolition and the finishing of the project has to go on before we're giving back the land that's left from Wayside Park. Is that correct, Mr. Lackey? So there's a little bit of time left.
I can check into that and confirm, but yes, if demo work and things are still ongoing, there's probably still need for the property by VDOT.
And with that being said, going way back to our first process of the federal Parks to Land program and the taking of the that park, I've many times mentioned to VDOT about the traffic concerns there, and they keep referring back to that 2017 study. So a lot of us have pointed out that there is an issue, and I know GWRC is one of the things we pointed out in their rural program, that they're going to be looking at the access problems now with Barnesfield Park, because many people now refer to it as a throughway. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Ms. Clark, and those with that are very concerned down in Monmouth and Chatham Village, I do know we did receive a letter here from Pyramid Healthcare, so Mr. Miller maybe wants to address it in his board report later and maybe share it with you, this letter that we got on April 10th. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, the King George Historical Society, many may not realize or know, about 3 years ago, we did trademark the county seal, and they were requesting allowance to use it because they do sell a lot of merchandise that do support the county, like teachers, sweatshirts, ornaments, that they could use the trademark. So I'm not sure, Ms. Lackey, what we have to do to allow them. I had brought it up when we originally voted on this, that the Historical Society would be one organization that we wanted to make sure could use our county seal because they do benefit the county in promoting our history and they help do a lot of events for us.
Thank you, Ms. Bender. Before I continue on, I forgot to, is there any member who have received any written correspondence or emails from the public in regards to public comment? No, okay. Mr. Stonehill? Your comment? You have a comment? Board comment? No board comment?
Hold on. I'm still going.
Oh, I thought you said thank you.
I just said thank you for that matter. Hold on. I was like, wait a minute, hold on.
Thank you usually means I'm done.
Well, I'm going to go back and I want to thank the Edgars for coming. I guess that is one thing I'll be researching when it comes to us about micro wineries. I've always said ag and sports tourism are the awesome things we need in King George to take advantage of what we have in King George. I made sure I wore this blazer today because I did visit the historic garden week a little later than some of my colleagues. But I want to give a special shout out to Mr. Clark and his staff, especially all those that were diligent, driving the buses back and forth and taking a lot of folks to the event. There were, as of last count, when I spoke to the garden clubs there was about 700 tickets sold. And I will tell you, Ms. Gibson and I went over to one of the properties and we met a couple that had traveled here from Los Angeles, California. And they came here is because Virginia is known as the best Garden Week tour in the nation, and that Virginia also has the most volunteers. And they came specifically from California. And the husband had to ask me all questions about being a board supervisor, but he was really nice and had a great conversation about why it was awesome. And there was a lot of people there at Sidell Brooks Junior Park using our new Sidell Brooks Park. Why am I blanking on that? Our new covering. Pavilion. Sorry about that. You know when you blank on something. So anyway, our new pavilion, which is really nicely done, and there was a lot of people there eating food and just looking at what our native plant garden has to offer. So I really appreciate, and also Nick Miner for pulling it together and his staff and all those volunteers that were out there doing a great job. And there was a lot of happy people going to those events and seeing the flowers and everything and supporting our tourism. So I really appreciate that. One other thing I wanted to bring up, and this has come, as many of you know, I've been coaching again, especially at the middle school, and I've heard a lot of conversation, and I know it's come up in our budget meetings about the salaries of the teachers and being able to maintain them. And the only thing I wanted to bring up is to make sure that we make sure our budget process, whatever the outcome is, does not drag on, because there is really talk about a lot of those teachers leaving because of contracts and that. And I know that's a hot button issue and there's a lot of discussion to come. I'm not saying one way or another, but we need to keep that in mind to make sure we don't drag out the budget process. But saying that, it doesn't help when the state doesn't really help us by not giving us definitive answers and pushing it off. You know, they want to mandate a lot of things, but, you know, they put it on the localities to make the hard decisions and they don't really back us up. So I just wanted to bring that to attention so we keep abreast of that. And I think that's it. I want to thank, if anybody, Ms. Little, whoever I haven't mentioned before, I want to thank Ms. Little. I want to tell you, definitely, I have brought up that we should get rid of that vehicle tax. And I know in the budget, with the work sessions we had earlier, I wanted to get rid of them right away. But I found that we couldn't really do that based on a whole bunch of reasons. So I'm in support of getting rid of the vehicle tax because I never understood it when I moved here. So thank you very much. Now I'm actually done.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bender. Mr. Stonehill?
All right, just say thanks for everybody coming out this evening. Ms. Clark, we did just receive in our packet a big information. There you are. Prom pyramid, and I'm sure that get a hold of Mr. Miller. He can relay some of that information, and we'll be able to read it over as well. Mr. Stroud, I guess we'll read over that stuff and see what they have to say, and appreciate that information. So we'll read that over. Edgars, I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think they got lost, the Planning Commission. If we allow vineyards, we allow breweries? Why in the world do we not allow micro wineries? And Mr. Edgar, you went on and talked about, their issues about selling alcoholic beverage from other vendors. The other vineyards do that. They have other people's wines there that they sell as well. So I don't understand their reasoning. Hopefully they can come back with something, and with all that information you supplied. And be good to have another vineyard or brewery here. So, and for a report, I just wanted to say thank you to the school board and Dr. Boyd for our April 6th meeting that we were at, a budget meeting. I appreciate all the information that they brought out, and it was a lot of information. So hopefully we can get that all taken care of and get this budget moved on, as Ms. Bender said, and not to drag it along. So as soon as we know something from Richmond, hopefully we can get stuff straightened out. And that's all I have. And welcome back, Mr. Collins.
Thank you. Ms. Kupka,
Welcome back, Mr. Collins.
thank you.
So let me start by addressing public comment. Thank you to everyone who joined us to provide your comment this evening. Mr. Stroud, we previously discussed your proposed project, and I believe at the time my first advice to you was check with community development to make sure you can even do what you may want to do here. I would strongly encourage you to send, or we can have it sent on, your comment to the Planning Commission. And I would also encourage you to attend. We're having a joint work session with the Planning Commission on April 25th. Come give public comment there as well, please. Ms. Clark, you had some questions about the Opioid Abatement Authority. I know of no connection between our allocation of funding or any plans to use it to support such a facility. We have a working group. The county attorney has been working with the sheriff and Chief Moody and some other folks on developing proposed uses for the funds. And to my knowledge, funding that center is not one of the proposed uses. I will say that at 2 budget work sessions ago, we actually heard from some nonprofits that we could support using that funding. So we are already aware of that, and hopefully there are some things that we can do moving forward with that funding. And again, as my colleagues alluded to, we had some correspondence in our folder when we got here this evening. This is the first I've seen it, but we'll make sure and share it. Mr. and Mrs. Edgar, with regard to the micro winery text amendment to the existing microbrewery ordinance, please know that the Board of Supervisors directed staff to craft a text amendment to bring forward for approval, for consideration and approval. And I would also encourage you to attend that April 25th joint work session with the Planning Commission and provide public comment there as well. Mr. Simonoff, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Later this evening, we will have, I believe, an action item because GWRC has previously presented to us a bike ped plan for Dahlgren area. Is something that's going to be suggested in the local, the rural work plan that they're going to be working on next year. And then they did present a courthouse area bike ped plan to us last month that hopefully we'll be able to adopt this evening. And that's going to help us be able to write for some grants in the future to try to fund some safety improvements, both down here on Route 3, where it's sorely needed, and also in the Dahlgren area. Ms. Lovell, thank you very much for your comment. Yes, I have been saying for a while now that I think it's fair to charge a vehicle license fee one time when you first bring a vehicle into the county, but it should not be charged every year. It's an abusive tax, in my opinion. So hopefully we'll be able to work on eliminating that during the budget cycle this year. And I would also, one other thing, with regard to the Dahlgren area, in the last board meeting, we accepted $100,000 in ARPA funds that we obtained from the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. And we were eligible for that money because we host a federal installation in our community, that being Dahlgren. So I would like to see, and I would like to see if there's consensus among our board members to direct staff to develop some proposed uses for that funding in the Dahlgren district. I can think right off the top of my head, Wayside Park, because we need to get it reopened. Barnesfield Park, anywhere along those lines, if my colleagues would be interested in pursuing that.
Mr. Bender? Stonehill? Collins, yes.
Thank you very much. And then I'll move on to the rest of my report. We all attended the joint budget work session with the school board. I want to thank staff on both boards for their work on crafting the budget. Last night, I attended the DSS administrative board meeting. They have a cool shirt that I wanted to share with the public. It says, "Small town, big heart." And so if anyone would like to order one, you can contact me and I'll pass your request on to social services. I'm not sure how much it will cost. It will depend on what the quantity is, or you can contact social services directly. And I too visited the King George tour for Historic Garden Week in Virginia at Sidell Brooks Junior Park. Want to thank the Garden Club of Virginia, all of the local garden clubs, and our departments of Park and Recreation and Economic Development and Tourism for their work in this successful event. The park was full. I mean, you couldn't find a place to park. I parked around the back by the sheriff's trailer in the back there. It was full and it was a beautiful sight. And I want to thank the gracious hosts who opened their homes to the public for this event. And I am told there are free tulips outside. Is that correct, staff? Yes? There are free tulips outside. Remember, we leave last and we might like to grab some too. But there are tulips outside that were part of the event today that were donated by Bloomia. So if you want to grab some on your way out, please help yourselves. And one last thing, another reminder, King George Department of Social Services Family Day and the King George VFW Sergeant Nicholas C. Mason Post 12202 will co-host its second annual post-birthday celebration on May 6, 2023 at Sealston Sports Complex from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Cupkin. So for my public comment, first I would like to, in my 35 years of public service to the state and to the King George County, it's been my opportunity in the last couple of weeks is to be of need and not serving those in need. And I would like to thank the citizens of King George County, the folks that sent me cards, emails, visited me in a hospital and home. At the hospital, I had to actually tell the security guard no more people up. So it was very overwhelming, the support of the community in this situation. I would also like to thank Sheriff Giles. His folks were there. While I was sitting on the stretcher, I could see all the action taking happen. Of course, somebody said that I was trying to run the crime scene while I was there, but then, and Chief, your folks, they did a great job. The fellow that was attending to me in the ambulance, I said, "Let me see your face so I can remember you." And he did that kind of begrudgingly because I guess he knows my reputation in the county. But they did a great job. They got me to the hospital. They got me in there. Everything went along well. I'm recovering still at home. I do have a broken back, so you'll see me limping around here. So that should be recovered hopefully in a couple weeks. Now back to the old me. As far as the special use permit on that, we will be bringing that up when we go through the process of the new ordinances. Ms. Clark, the premeditated of pyramid having any kind of the opioid settlement, I think would be preposterous. And I know that none of this board would ever be on board for that. And the county attorney is working on a spend plan for the money we have. And anything to do with pyramid would be off the chart for me. And I can't speak for the others, but I have a feeling that would be the same. The microbreweries, micro wineries, I had opportunity to listen to the planning commission, and it did get a little crazy in the planning commission. They were going down some rabbit holes, but I still think, and I agree with Mr. Stonehill, that will be come forth, and we will have micro wineries, so those folks don't need to worry so much. If anyone was here for the Water Authority meeting, you'll recall that the Water Authority is being managed by Emboden, which is a private company that we're paying millions of dollars to, and they are the operator in charge. I find some problems with that. Number one, we have a contract that's been agreed to for a couple of years, 3 years, and there will be an election coming this November, so whoever gets elected will be saddled with that contract. It won't be do much about it, and it is quite a contract. They also, Emboden doesn't have any liability for exposures to the freshwater or any of those governmenting agencies. And the third thing is Water Authority was speaking of hiring a high-level director, manager in the $115,000 range. And Bowden's supposed to be the operator in charge. And they talked about the county taking on this burden, this financial burden, the county board. The Water Authority spoke about speaking with the Board of Supervisors and having conference with them. I haven't had any, so I don't know what they're talking about. I just learned of the Emboden, that they approved the Emboden contract, and now they want $115,000 for another county employee to run that organization. So we need to have a big conversation with them about that. And that will be the end of my comments for this evening. Constitutional officers, C1. Mr. Sheriff Giles, you have anything? Thank you.
And we have a representative from the treasurer's office as well.
Did you want to do the consent agenda before I do my constitutional officer, or do you want me to just jump right in?
The consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You want to come up here and sit with me, Chris? Help me out? Appreciate it.
But you also have the approval of the minutes. Did you want to do that before me or no?
That's all in there.
Okay, good. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Collins and members of the board. Mr. Collins, I'm truly, truly glad to see that you're recovering, and I appreciate the kind words about my office. Thank you. I have two quick items I'd like to report tonight, and it shouldn't take hardly any time at all. First, I'd like to report that on April 10th, 2023, Deanna Price and Deputy Simon conducted an inspection of all stores in King George that sell cigarettes. During the inspection, Deanna talked with several store managers in reference to getting their inventory and sales sheets filled out, and turned in on time. All the stores were otherwise in compliance with the King George County tax regulations, and Deanna and Deputy Simon will conduct another random inspection here very soon. So, having said that, do you have any questions in reference to the cigarette tax inspections?
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'd like to brief the board on our animal shelter. The shelter partners with several rescue groups to locate forever homes for the animals that are housed in the shelter. Not only do we partner with the rescue groups, but my staff also uses every social media platform out there to get the animals adopted. I've requested in the animal control budget an increase in the medical line so we can have all the animals that become property of King George County to be spayed and neutered, along with any type of vaccines to help offset any cost during the adopting person, any cost to the adopting person, in the hope to move the animals out of the shelter at a faster rate. Unfortunately, there are times when there's a court order or the animal is not adoptable, or for medical reasons, we are forced to euthanize them. Some of the reasons for not being adoptable could range from being too old, not family friendly, and having medical issues that they weren't be cleared. And some of the medical reasons are mixtures of quality of life, not being able to walk or stand, dogs having multiple seizures, or the fact that they were hit by a car, or any other medical reasons that may arise. But I would like to be perfectly clear that euthanasia is an absolute last resort and not enjoyable for anyone. Every single attendant and animal control officer love animals, or they wouldn't be doing that job. So the euthanasia part is not part of the jobs that they enjoy or look forward to. Euthanasia only occurs when all possible means have been exhausted to have the animal adopted or rescued, court ordered, or for medical reasons. Some of the animals have been in the shelter for over 2 years. For the last 3 months, we've been able to, with the help of King George Animal Rescue League, get 14 dogs and 53 cats rescued. Through the efforts of our animal control officers, we are able to get 19 dogs adopted and 24 dogs returned to their owners, 7 cats adopted and 11 returned to their owners. As of last week, we had 20 dogs in the shelter with 3 kennels open, 15 cats in the shelter with 24 kennels open. Tonight, I want to assure you that we are not a primary kill shelter, but there are times when euthanasia is performed as an absolute last resort. So that will conclude my report on the shelter, and I'll try to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions?
Mr. Chair, not really a question. I just want to thank you, Sheriff Giles, for coming out and providing this information. I did reach out to you after the last budget work session because I was approached by a constituent that had some questions, and we had heard from outside agencies with a request for support for animals. So thanks very much for bringing us the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am, you're welcome.
Sheriff, some folks have approached me too about whether King George is a no-kill shelter. And I didn't have a good answer for him because I didn't know the answer. So it's a no-kill shelter unless it's medical or a court order, basically. Then
No, it is not a primary kill shelter. If we've exhausted every means, or the dog is aggressive to have the dog adopted, then and we're overcrowded, then we're forced to euthanize. But at this time, because of the efforts made by King George Animal Rescue and my staff at the pound, we're able to not be overcrowded. And that's the total goal that we have at the animal shelter, is to get them in. If we can't find the owners, the proper owners for them, then we get them rescued. And I feel we work rather well with King George Animal Rescue League, but we also partner with other rescue leagues around the Commonwealth to get them rescued.
the SPA came and did a segment in our budget work session, and they spoke about
Yes, sir.
that they could provide medical assistance. I was hoping we could reach out to those folks and take them advantage of that.
I can let you know, Mr. Collins, that I spoke to my director at Animal Control, and they have no contact with Fredericksburg SPCA.
Okay.
The only time that they've had contact with them is when they've chipped a dog or an animal and reached out to them to see if they would come pick the animal up, and sometimes they have, and sometimes they haven't come and pick the animal up.
Do you know offhand why that dog is there for 2 years? What's the dog's problem, or what's the issue?
People just don't want to adopt it. It's getting up in age now. It has no medical problems, and it is adoptable as far as being family friendly and whatnot, but people just have not adopted it.
Thank you. Anything else? Huh? Dog food?
Yeah, can we adopt this dog?
Yes, I was thinking about adopting another dog. That's why I was asking. But hey, thank you. Appreciate
You're more than welcome to come on down and adopt every single one I've got there.
it. Then you'd be at my house, noise complaint.
Probably. Thank you.
So we have someone here from the treasurer's office.
Good evening. I'll be reading the monthly receipts and expenditures for the month of March. The beginning balance was $38,234,921.86. The receipts were $22,195,478.52, with disbursements being $23,326,115.54, for an ending balance of $37,104,284.84, and this has been reconciled with the general ledger.
Thank you. Any questions? Question. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next would be the report of the county attorney. And Ms. Lackey, could you address the opioid while you're doing your report, please?
Sure, I can address briefly. Miss Hahn could address the amount of funds, but surely the amount the county is going to receive is not going to approach $1 million in each year of the settlement agreement. There are substantial funds, but not nearly that substantial. And there's no allocation as of yet. There's no proposed expenditure for the funds. There was a presentation at the last meeting of a possible partnership with some of the other communities, and to go through the Rappahannock Area Community Services Board to perhaps enhance some services to the population affected by opioids. But the committee, which Mr. Miller is also part of, kind of an informal committee of stakeholders, will be bringing some proposals to you, but nothing currently involves Pyramid or really any other private provider. The current partnerships we're looking at are public agencies. And Supervisor Bender brought up a request for use of the county seal. I believe Mr. Miller's prepared to respond to that in his remarks. If there is consensus of the board to grant a license to the Historical Society, Jessica Washington's prepared a document that could effectuate that. And in brief, I did want to mention that yesterday began the Legal Food Frenzy, which is a campaign that's chaired through the bar associations and the Attorney General's office. It raises funds for food banks throughout the state. It's a friendly competition among both public and private law firms or agencies. So if anyone wants any more information about that, please let me know. I'm happy to take donations to the Fredericksburg Food Bank if I receive them before the 28th of this month. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Lackey? No questions. We're moving on. There's no board commissions, agency reports, or no public hearings. Presentation and reports, sheets to sheets. Mr. Chalkley, come on up.
Thank you, and welcome back, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
I'll be as brief as I can. I want to give you an update on the economic impact and the return on investment, both yours and mine, for the latest sheets to sheets trail run. Thank you. All right, so we'll start with some numbers. Two charts here in the blue. It shows, and many of you have seen this, the growth and maturity of this event over the years. So you see we started from just a handful to 350. It sold out in less than 24 hours, and we had over 50 people on the wait list. So it's definitely grown very fast. That is the cap, so you'll see the chart start to level off. There's only so many people we can put on the trail and put in a sheet store, honestly. So I think 350 is the limit. The green chart shows the corresponding increase in the charitable donation as well. As the numbers go up, we're able to give over $4,400 this year to local charities. It all stays local. About $15,000, $16,000 total over the last 5-6 years. Okay, so I won't go over this, but this is just a snapshot of the various components, investments, and so forth over the years. And this year, I'll say this is the first time that the whole vision came together. We were blessed with beautiful weather, unlike last year. Many of the things that we had planned last year that we couldn't do, it all came together this year. I sent you each a link to a 4-minute video. I encourage you to watch that. You'll see, I think, that it really came together. This year in red, there were three items that were funded through a TAC grant. So I want to go through those real quick. Mr. Dines? Oh, sorry, I've got through them. So number one is the goal of outreach and advertising. So I advertised with the Richmond marathons. Perfect timing. They're in right before I opened registration. We had an RVA to KG campaign, and I think by any measure it was very successful. You'll see the 20. This is the heat map showing where people came from locally last year versus this year. So you can see many of the runners were from the Richmond area. 2/3 of the runners this year were first timers. They had never been here before, never done the race. Just lots of good vibe, lots of good word of mouth, even in the Richmond run clubs and the Richmond based run stores as well. So I think that worked very well. The second item is related to safety. So now this one didn't go as well, honestly. So we had a good plan at the top there. We had plans for, and what the money was for was to hire a professional traffic management company out of Richmond. And they were going to lay cones down down Kings Highway for a running corridor and then block off a lane of Comorn until we can get to the trail. So that was the plan. And the biggest snag of the race day was a flat tire of all things grounded this traffic transportation company. They literally showed up at the last minute, but through superhero efforts of volunteers, the sheriff's office helped quite a bit, and I believe the Virginia State Police helped as well. We improvised in the last 30 minutes, called upon all able-bodied volunteers to line Route 3 there and help with traffic, and it turned out pretty well. I've got a couple pictures here of the race. And the last one, and probably the one I'm most proud of, has to do with environmental stewardship and sustainability. So you might remember I was here before talking about cupless racing. And what that ended up with was purchase these cups. So in a normal race, you end up with hundreds, maybe thousands of disposable cups and bottles that end up in a landfill. So instead of that, this year I made the bold move of going completely cupless. So gave everybody one of these, and they're collapsible. You just put it in your pocket, take it with you, bring it out at the aid station. And I think it worked very well. So many of you probably know Mr. Warren Beasy there in the picture and his dog Sailor. They clean up the trail after every event. And I thought it was very telling when he said the Sheets to Sheets was the largest event ever hosted on the trail, but also generated the least trash. So that was very affirming of that change, of the change we had to make to processes and equipment and training volunteers so that there weren't bottlenecks. HydroPack, by the way, that's the company that makes these. These are the best-selling speed cups. They liked the story. They picked that up and shared it nationally through their social media accounts, and they never do that. If you look at their accounts, they only talk about their products and so forth. So this really resonated with them, and we have a great relationship with HydroPack. And we have enough of these cups left over to do that one more year, to include it in the registration for next year, this year. Lots of local engagement as usual. You see the sponsors and various partners. I'll just highlight a couple. Again, we hired the school buses from the drivers. That worked out perfectly. It works out very well. And then we also had returning. We had the Enlisted Association from the Joint Warfare Analysis Center and various other organizations. Unfortunately, so we had the King George Junior ROTC group, color guard from the high school, lined up, but again, 2 years in a row, something it just didn't work out with scheduling because of the spring break. So hopefully we'll get them out there next year. So this event is all about showing 350 people a great time. I think we did that, but it's also at the end of the day we want to make money for King George. We want to promote King George. So I'll try to touch upon the local economic impact. I do as much as I can to shop local. By all the I could save a lot of money buying shirts online, but I appreciate what Signworks does. I go through them. We have a great relationship, and then I hire, wherever I can, these various services. Restaurants, kind of a mixed bag, or maybe more accurately to say, I'm not sure how it went, because the only volunteer position I was unable to fill was a restaurant liaison, somebody to be at the various restaurants after the event and take pictures and see how it went. So honestly, I don't know how many people went to our restaurant partners afterwards at IHOP and Wendy's. Lodging, that's still a problem area. You may remember last year I mentioned that. If anything, it's gotten worse. So there's 5 hotels within walking distance of the finish line. And I didn't get any cooperation from any of them. Most of them wouldn't talk to me, and then the rest, they did not give me a hotel block of rooms. They would not give me a discount. They would not join the hotel program. So I'm not sure how to fix that. Despite that, our best estimates, and this is from the surveys of people as they were coming to packet pickup, we asked, hey, are you staying local? Our best guess is 25 to 35 hotel nights were generated by the event. That's our conservative estimate, despite not promoting it, not having any reservations, that sort of thing. So I don't believe Mr. Minor's here, but maybe I can work offline with him, because unless he has some magic bullet, that whole effort that I put into the hotel program just is not worth it, and it's a lot of work for no gain, unfortunately. I do want to highlight 3 businesses in particular, 3 partners. Some of them are new, or some are expanded relationships. So Highmark Brewery, they're new to the county, of course. Great relationship with them. We took part in several of their promotions. Here soon, if you go visit the King George location, you'll see our finisher belt on display behind the bar. So just a great partnership there. CNF Bank was new for us this year. They came out and not only provided those green drawstring bags for all the finishers, but they also brought 4 volunteers. So that was very well received. And Bayside Auto, they've been great partners for several years now. This year they expanded it and even added a parking shuttle. So that was very popular. So we use racecheck.com. It's a UK-based company. Think of it as Yelp for running events, where people rate the event. And so for 2 years in a row, we've earned their highest award, their gold award. Right now, we're sitting with a rating of 4.92 out of 5, the 6th highest rated off-road running event in the entire world. So we're very proud of that. They are also, like I said, they're UK based. They're mostly across Europe. They have thousands of races. They're trying to get their foot in the door with the US more. They're actually interviewing me on later this week, where I get to tell this story again to them, and they'll share it through their processes. So again, it's just great recognition and great visibility for the county. I also, separately, I do a survey, and these are some of the write-in comments. Those are the most telling, I think. And I'll let you read those. The one that jumps out at me the most probably is the top middle. Talks about having a laser focus on a top-notch, one-of-a-kind running event. And that's exactly what I've been trying to do, and hopefully the message you've seen over the years, trying to be very unique, have some very unique features, and be very professional at the same time. There were a few areas where we didn't hit the mark. Things like, of course, we need more porta-johns. That came across loud and clear. We ran out of some food at some of the aid stations a little early. I mentioned that parking shuttle that Bayside provided. It was well received, except that a lot of people didn't hear about it. They didn't read the emails. We didn't promote it enough. So, but the good news is all those things are easy to fix. So no major problems other than the traffic situation, and I've already got a lead on a different company for that. So I believe we're bringing a lot of good attention to King George. We're using the hashtag RunKG. The demand is certainly greater than the supply, to the point where word of mouth has really taken over. I'm not sure I'll have to advertise much at all this coming year. We've got 1,200 plus followers on social media. So come midnight, Black Friday is when registration opens. You've got hundreds of people across the Mid-Atlantic clamoring to get in. So it's we're at that point where we wanted to be when we started this journey a couple years ago. I mentioned the national exposure. Hydra Pack, they picked up that story. In fact, they're sending us some equipment, some pictures and so forth to help with the coupless racing. And Tough Mutt. So we're one of the most dog-friendly events around, races around. Most events, you might see a couple dogs or they're not allowed at all. I go out of my way to promote dogs. They get their own finisher bags. They have their own treats at the aid stations and so forth. That really resonated with Tough Mutt. They're a national company. They sent us a lot of free stuff to give out to some of our canine athletes as well. I mentioned international attention from Race Check. The rail trail has been a big hit. If you read the write-in comments on the survey, especially, I think a trend I see is that we tend to take that amenity for granted. So you read a lot of comments about people saying, you know, I came from wherever, Northern Virginia, because we don't have trails like this. I can't just go up my backyard and be completely secluded. So the DRHT is always a big hit in the survey. And then in general, I think, again, from the survey, the reputation is starting to center around, you know, being dog friendly and inclusive, certainly being fun, affordable, and environmentally responsible. So those are the things we're starting to be known for. And the one I'm promoting and pushing is the story of public-private partnership and the help I get with the TAC grant, and hopefully you'll see that I'm putting that to good use and getting a good return on the investment. Last note I want to make is on affordability. I believe there may have been a question or comment a couple meetings ago about local races and their prices and affordability. And I'll let you read all the data there, but the data shows that, you know, two things. One is my price is much lower than most comparable races. And again, we're talking half marathons and above. You can't really compare a 5K fun run and all the logistics involved with something like a point-to-point trail run. So I always do a survey and update. Of course, I have a spreadsheet for this. I have a spreadsheet for everything. Update my numbers, and I stay well below the average. Then also, I give away a lot more than just a cheap T-shirt and a medal. So everything I give away from these cups to name brand shirts is valued at I estimate over $40. So the average price anybody pays is $66. This past year, you know, if you went and looked in February or March, you might have seen an advertised price of $85 or something crazy like that, but nobody pays that. That's the ramp price. Every race has that. I sold out well before the first price increase ever happened. So, and then lastly, I haven't planned too much for next year, but I don't expect any big changes. It's more about tweaking things and keep doing the things that work well. I might try to work on diversity again. Didn't get too much reception last year, but I can work on that as second time. And lastly, almost 2,000 pictures online. So all sorts of pictures, videos, like I said. So that is it, and I'll take any questions you have.
Questions, comments?
Not a question, but just thank you for coming out. It's a great race. I mean, I hear so much about it, and while you're running through it, I checked out your racecheck.com, and like you said, it's just one positive comment after another about the race, and it's definitely. I mean, I meet a lot of people who hear about King George because of the race, and I just never realized really how big it's gotten, but it's obviously, I mean, really, really grown. So, thank you, and thank your whole crew and everything, and especially Sheets as well. And we're looking forward to, you know, next year. Hopefully, you'll arrange some good weather like we had this year.
Hope so.
Not any snow.
Yeah, as in my role as a coach, I meet a lot of people that do these fun runs, and one of the things that I've heard more and more, you need to have more opportunities because it is a lot of people like it, and making it cost effective. But so I wanted to put, and then are they reusable?
They are, and I will leave one of these for each of you.
I know I mentioned it before because that's a cool idea, running many races myself and giving out water with the cross country team. There's a lot of cups that are thrown on the ground. Yes, there is. So it's cool to hear that is available. Thank you.
And Ms. Bender, in your comments, you mentioned sports tourism, I think you called it. So that's exactly what we're pushing for here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chalkley, thank you very much for your presentation and another seems very successful event. Did have a question about the traffic management vendor.
Yep.
Did they get paid?
They tried to get paid. They sent me an invoice, and I overwhelmed them with a 4-page response, and they backed off. So, no,
Thank you for that. So will you be returning those funds to the TAC fund?
I think what what I will, so I need to find a new vendor for next year and put it towards that is my plan.
So you need to ask permission from the TAC to do that.
Okay.
You have to
Mr.
get Mr. Minor.
Okay.
Yeah, ask if you can defer the funds or carry over the funds till next year. And then I would also remind you that in the past, for different events, TAC funds have also been used to support rental of porta-johns. So if you need more of those, you might want to consider that for a future request.
Right.
Nice job. Thanks very much.
It came through loud and clear on the survey. Mr. Collins, if I may, I'll bring you extra cups.
Okay, could you give Mr. Dines, and thank you so much. It was good to hear from you and good to hear all the successes and the feedbacks that you need work on. It seem very easy to take care of. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for putting us in the public image. Department of Fire and Rescue resolution to adopt the regional hazardous mitigation plan.
Mr. Chairman, I too want to welcome you back. Wait for Mr. Dines.
I already got one. I got one. My wife got one. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman and members of the board, good evening to you. So this is a legal mandate that we have a disaster hazard mitigation plan. This is one of the emergency plans that we team up with our regional planning commission as a joint initiative between all localities in Planning District 16. These are updates that were made to that hazard mitigation plan, and the action tonight is to approve the resolution that you have in your packet as presented to adopt the GWRC Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 update. I believe you have a copy of the executive summary in your board packet, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, any motions?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to adopt the resolution to adopt the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2023 update as presented.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Chief. It passes unanimously. Next one is Fire and Rescue resolution to authorize the county administrator to execute a purchase agreement for the acquisition of real property for the proposed relocation of Dahlgren Fire Rescue Station. Amen.
Amen.
About time.
Yes, sir. I agree. And I'm very excited that this item is on your agenda packet tonight. This has been a long time in the making, and I'm glad we can finally talk about it in an open forum. Just to bring people up to speed that may be watching via internet, television, and also our members of the public that are in the audience. For many, many years, we have been seeking to find suitable property to replace and to expand our fire and rescue mission, our Company 2 station in the Dahlgren district. This station currently is on Route 206. We are currently, and have been for many years, operating out of two separate buildings. We have the fire station, and we have the old rescue station. It's no secret our county is growing, our mission and our demand is growing. And so having the need for a new Company 2 fire and rescue station in Dahlgren is inherently important. This property is a relationship and a partnership we have been working with Oakland Baptist Church on for over 3-year period. I know I was working on it prior to COVID. We finally were able to reach an agreement on this property, and this is going to serve the county and also the Dahlgren district for many, many years to come. Just to orientate people where this is, it's over 3.15 acres on the corner lot of Windsor Drive and Route 301. It's right east of the Four Seasons Daycare. It's the open lot between the Four Seasons Daycare and Route 301. There's a lot of strategic advantages to having a fire and rescue station there. Happy to answer and to dive into this even deeper. The recommended action would be to authorize the resolution that you have in your board packet for the county administrator to execute a purchase agreement for acquisition of real property for the proposed relocation of the Dahlgren Fire and Rescue Station, and also to take the necessary finance actions that Mr. Miller read earlier in the amendment that's in your board report. And just to highlight, I think Mr. Miller said 125. Specifically, it was to transfer $125,000. So I believe that is in your the way it's stated in your board report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Bender?
I just wanted for the public, and so you can answer this, because this was a controversy many, many years ago, even before I was on the board. This is a willing seller for the property, correct?
Absolutely, willing seller, and we have developed a great partnership with the church and their leadership team. But this is yes, most certainly a willing seller, and is not any type of government domain or eminent domain issue.
And then the last thing, as we know, with this fire station and also the design is transferable to a possible station 4 in Shiloh District, it's made to put a ladder truck in it and in a helipad, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
Which
and
is vital down there.
Absolutely. And that's a current site we use typically in Dahlgren for when we have to land a helicopter from time to time. So.
And the site makes perfect sense. It's in a good location, and it'll service that area well. So thank you to you and your team for the many long negotiations.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I move to adopt the resolution to authorize the county administrator to execute a purchase agreement for acquisition of real property for the proposed relocation of the Dahlgren Fire and Rescue Station, and move to fund the amount of $353,000 by the following transfers or reappropriations. 1, transfer $125,000 from project 4-302-094133-8212 for EMS facilities to 4-302-094131-8212 for fire EMS fire station replacement, and further to appropriate an additional $133,000 from CIP to 4-302-094131-8212 to complete the acquisition of the property.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, Ms. Lackey, is it all right we do it all in one, or do we need to do the first resolution and then the second separate?
I think that we can combine them into the one motion.
Okay. That was my question.
And Chief, what was the total price of that property?
The total price of the property is $340,000.
So that's $340,000 for a spot on 301 and a major intersection. Okay, thank you. Is no more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, unanimous. Thank you so much. Appreciate Chief and County Administrator, County Attorney getting that finally done after all these years, so we can get going. Thank you so much. I can't stand, brother. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Clark, Department of Parks and Rec. We're in shorts today, huh?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies for my lack of formality and dress tonight, but I spent all day at Sid Albrecht Junior Park with Garden Week. Tonight, I bring also apologies from Ms. Carrie Eves of the George Washington Regional Commission. She was unable to attend tonight. She had another engagement. But I bring back to you the courthouse area bicycle and pedestrian plan that she presented on March 7th that we will use to work on our grant applications for transportation alternatives and smart scale going forward. I also bring the rural transportation work plan that Ms. Kupka mentioned in her board report on March 21st. In that plan, the courthouse plan came out of this year's rural work plan. For next year, our projects will be the park access study for Barnesfield and Wayside Park, a similar trailways type study for the Dahlgren area, and then specific assistance where there's money budgeted for Ms. Eves and the staff of FAMPO to assist us with smart scale applications so that we get transportation planners behind us and making sure that we're doing things correctly and hopefully be ready and more viable as a candidate for those projects. So tonight, staff and the George Washington Regional Commission recommend that you approve both these plans as presented.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do have a brief question. So, Mr. Clark, what I mentioned in my board report that evening was actually that the rural work plan, the rural transportation work plan for next fiscal year would include an economic development, a second industrial park economic development road access plan. And it's my understanding that Mr. Minor was working with Ms. Eves already on something during this current fiscal year. So if necessary, it would just carry over. So I just wanted to be clear that that's why it's a little bit different than what I mentioned last month.
That's true. Yeah, I should have gone back and listened to it all to make sure I had it all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else? Motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I move to approve the King George Courthouse Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan as presented.
Second.
A motion properly second. Any discussion? No, seeing no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye.
And another motion, Mr. Chair.
ma'am.
I move to approve the Rural Transportation Work Plan as presented.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Yes, just for clarity, both of these plans will now go to the George Washington Regional Commission's meeting this month and hopefully will be approved as presented as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Clark to
Sir.
reapproach, please?
Sir.
No, up there. I'm sorry. Could you, excuse me, I think we had some questions about Wayside Park, and could you provide an update on what the status is, what Maryland is telling us, what, so we have an idea?
Yeah, Mr. Dines has a aerial shot that Captain Lynn took for me, and then I've added some extra parts to it as part of our CIP presentation. So this was in front of the Planning Commission last week. Currently, the access road, which is the light gray, is still under, that's the bridge there at the top. Yep. That is still under the control of the Maryland Department of Transportation and VDOT because they are still using that access to finish demolition. As you come down the road, in the middle of the yellow rectangle, there's a fence line. That is actually, that's our property line running straight up and down there, Chris. So that's our current property line. Once they are finished with all of their work, we will revert back to there's a fence against the shadow of the bridge, which is kind of hard to see. That property, so all that property in between those two fences will revert to us. So going forward, one of the items I have in the CIP is planning for all of the areas, all 4 properties that we own in that area. But as Ms. Kupka mentioned in her board report, one of the things that I'd already started some work on is the ability to be able to reopen this park as soon as possible, most likely in September. And that we need to fix the parking area that's there where the yellow rectangle would be at the bottom. Right now it's a complete mess. I have a number of pictures and video that I took, and then Captain Lynn took aerial shots for me with the drone. And then we're also going to need to most likely figure out a way to add some angle parking there on the access road. And then as we redevelop, I've got a second step that I've kind of worked to go around the RPA and the wetlands and the other side, but that'll be long-term planning as we get into the capital improvement process. I am meeting Thursday. It is this week. Yeah, I believe it's Thursday with Friends of the Rappahannock, Mr. Hunsinger, and Meredith Keppel, who is the environmental planner with George Washington Regional Commission, where we're going to talk about some good ways that we can be environmentally friendly, both at Wayside and at Barnesfield, and the way we plan things, and hopefully will qualify us for different grant opportunities as well to help us with that.
Thank you.
Just one question. Can we get a copy of that map?
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson, or you send it to us?
Yeah, I'll send
Thank
it to
you.
Mr. Miller and have him send it out. Yeah, and you'll see it, and I guess June when we do the we're bringing the capital improvement plan as well. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Miller?
Yes, sir. So I guess reference to Pyramid Health, as you recall, the board had asked that Mr. Granger sent a letter in which he did, and we did hear back, and you do have a copy of that. We've got a response that was addressed to Mr. Granger specifically, and then was copied to Miss Hall. And essentially, they attempted to answer a number of those questions. I think I would just reserve it to Mr. Granger to see if he's satisfied with the answer. They obviously point out the kind of facility that they're going to operate. I think you can read it for yourself. You know, again, there's no specific requirements that they had to answer. I think they were providing some information to address some of the questions that I believe Ms. Dirtz had, and possibly Ms. Clark as well, that we forwarded to them. I will tell you this, and I understand it won't be received very well with the community, but I understand that they have refiled, or they've started their process, and they've paid their money, and so now the community development staff will begin the process of going through their application, their site plan. Ms. Hall did indicate to me that there is still some inconsistencies that they're working through with them, so we'll keep you posted on that. Mr. Bryce Young, our principal engineer with the county engineering department, had followed up the meeting that we held back in March on the 30th with the citizens. He indicated or sent a letter to the engineering firm that is representing the Pyramid folks, asking specifically for information about the water concerns that some of the citizens have. To date, we have not received anything, but again, it's not required that they answer it. However, obviously, as a good neighbor, you know, it'd be nice to get that information. So as soon as we get that information, we will pass that on to you. Okay, so to-do list, you have in your packet just the capital projects. Again, we're going to do the front end of the month. We're going to do the non-capital items, which include a number of the items like ordinances and policy discussion type issues and things like that. We'll have that on the first meeting of the month, and then we'll do the second meeting of the month we'll reserve for the capital projects. There's a number of items that are on there that will come off or be moved into the complete column. Obviously, Siddell Brooks Park Pavilion, which is very nice, and Mr. Clark and did a great job working with the contractor on that, and so that is complete. The new courthouse, obviously, that's ongoing. If you've not had a chance to go down there, be happy to let you get close. I know you have to get a helmet if you or a hard hat if you get on site, but we will get them to come back and do another update here fairly soon. But again, that's ongoing. There's a number of projects that are capital related that are related to the service authority, and that's by virtue of the fact that Bryce and Mr. Cusenberry are working with them on those projects as the engineering reps, and so there's a number of those that are updated as well. But if there's any questions about any of the capital projects, let me know. Just a reminder of your meeting schedule over the next couple of weeks and month. We have a joint meeting next Tuesday, and that'll be here in the boardroom. I believe it's at 6 p.m. Is that correct, Mr. Dines? Jackie, is that correct? 6 p.m. with the Planning Commission. And that again is to go over the work that the Berkeley group is doing on the zoning overhaul. And there's two meetings scheduled. The other one would be on May 30th, same time in the boardroom. Your budget meetings, so there is a budget meeting scheduled for 6 p.m. here in the boardroom this Thursday. And then we have one scheduled for the boardroom here on the 27th. I think that it's important to note that right now you have three competing budgets at the state level with the governor's proposed budget, you have the Senate's proposed budget, and you have the House's proposed budget. It's a realistic possibility you won't have a budget at the state level, especially related to education, until June. And so I think we're going to talk about some scenarios and what do we do? How do we as a county move forward? I know there's a number of counties that have already adopted their budget. Now, I'm assuming they'll probably come back and amend it in some fashion, but that's one of those options that I think we can discuss. But because I know it most dramatically affects the schools, and I think that's the one that we obviously just need those answers. Hopefully, we'll get some traction, and they'll be able to get this resolved. Another item on there is just an information item. Community development will be doing their process of sending out the septic system pump out notices that they do. So if you have a septic system, you either need to kill it or have it pumped out. And this is like an every 5-year requirement. It's by virtue of the Chesapeake Bay Act. And the Community Development Department is the administrator of that. So I think the other item that I had was, and Ms. Lackey and Ms. Bender had talked about it. So originally I was going to have this item on there was the Historical Society's request to use the logo. It's my understanding, and it goes back to when Mr. Britton was your county attorney, that he was able to get it trademarked and protected. But there was never really any regulations or any kind of procedures or any kind of process that goes through it. I think Ms. Lackey indicated that her assistant, Ms. Washington, is developing a kind of a form. So really, I think in lieu of any kind of procedures being put together, the best approach would probably be to have a motion where you're approving the Historical Society usage of it, and let them work with Miss Lackey in terms of any forms or anything like that. And I think it just keeps it pure, and that isn't something that we're just kind of like letting anybody use. I think it should be something that comes before the board. I think the contemplation that Mr. Britton had at the time was that it could be approved by the county administrator. I don't have a problem with that, but I think it would be best that it comes before the board, kind of like you already do with other aspects of it. But that's not my decision. It would be yours.
Are you concluding your report?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Collins?
Oh, I'm sorry. You do have employee anniversaries. So Vic Mason, the top of the list, Lieutenant Govan as well, just with the years of service. So if you see him, see Vic, thank him. 29 years.
Mr. Collins, can I entertain a motion? I'd like to make a motion to allow the King George Historical Society to use our county seal.
There's a second. No second, motion fails.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment about that?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not that I don't support their use of it, but I would like to see some parameters or guidelines for how they could use it so that we can hold everyone to the same standard, because there will be other groups that come forward who want to use the county seal, like if they get tourism money and they want to put it on their brochures or their signs or their posters or whatever, or their, giveaways, this kind of thing. So I would like to see some standards so that we're consistent in how we treat every group that wants to use it. That's my only hesitation.
Ms. Kamislaki, can you come up with some kind of more formalized form that specifies?
Sure. So as Ms. Washington has done a draft that I can circulate, and so you can have different parameters for people for use for nonprofit and uses for profit. In addition, the proposed draft that I can circulate is that it would be a limited duration of 12 months or unless sooner revoked. So if you find that there is an issue or something like that, it could be rescinded at some future time.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
The only stipulation I asked just to look into for the Historical Society, because they've been using the logo pre-trademark going way back to their organization. So is there some way, like an extra clause for those, like the historicals? I know that's a unique case.
So another thing you can do is that you can require them to show you what their design and concept is, so you know exactly what uses. If you all were comfortable with a particular, historic usage by the Historical Society, that's something that could be drafted specifically for them.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to work on that, Mr. Miller, Ms. Lackey?
Yeah, we'll circulate a draft. I saw in minutes that Mr. Britton had mentioned developing a form, but I can't for the life of me find one. So Jessica's done a fine job, and Mr. Miller hasn't seen the draft yet, but we'll circulate that to you all.
When do you think that'll be ready?
So I can certainly circulate the draft prior to the next meeting. So if you all wanted to include it, or I can mention it in my report at the May 2nd meeting.
So you want to include it in the next meeting? Census? Stonehill? Okay, thank you.
If I may, just one last one. Obviously, Mr. Dines is excited about our new hire, communications and community engagement coordinator, because he's going to get relieved of having to put things on the website. So, but anyway, Ms. Southall started on Monday, and she is absorbing herself into things, and we're dumping as much information as we can on her so she can get ready, and she's going to start reaching out. And I know one of those reach out sessions will include sitting down with you all individually and just kind of getting your ideas and perspectives about how this position can work and what we can be doing as a county organization to do more outreach, more social media, whatnot, branding, all those kind of wonderful things. So we'll have her get in touch with you.
Will she be coming to the meetings?
She will. We will have her at the May 2nd meeting. Or I can try to get her here at another meeting. I might see if I can get her at the budget meeting just to introduce herself.
My question for you, Mr. Miller, is the pyramid. So where is that in regards to any opportunity for it not to be there? Is that dead?
It's my understanding that the idea, and I think it's mentioned in the letter, that the conversation that he had, I think, with Mr. Stonehill, and he references that. And then, of course, we conveyed to them the issue of the possible land swap and things like that, that really just was not an option, that there's nothing really available that they would be interested in. I think there was some discussion about the possibility of something in the proposed second industrial park, but that doesn't have water or sewer right now, and to do all that would involve a heck of a lot. So if the board directs us, we'll continue to try to have some dialogue with the CEO, but it appears that the idea of property swaps or property acquisition is just really not available, I don't believe. And I think Mr. Granger would conclude that as well.
Would there be a consensus of the board to give it one more shot?
My only question on that is for a land swap, it has to be county-owned land, correct? You
Yes,
can't
I
afford
mean, I
to
don't
force
think
a
we could.
private citizen to
Right,
swap.
unless there's somebody willing to come up, but I think that avenue, I think Mr. Stonehill had tried that and I don't know that that went anywhere. So.
So, Mr. Collins, what would that look like? You have any suggestions?
Just, no, not just a dialogue, just to see if we can get over any of those humps, which I understand exist. Just one more shot at it, just so we can say that we've exhausted everything that we can do to help those folks down there. That's it.
I'm not opposed to that.
Linder? Yes, Mr. Stonehill? Okay, give it another shot. Thank you.
I will talk with Mr. Stonehill and I'll also bring it up with the chair, with Mr. Granger, and see how he wants to pursue it. But I do think that we definitely can approach them. I mean, you can only be told no.
That's correct. All righty, thank you. Is there any appointments to any boards or commissions? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. No closed meetings tonight.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to Thursday, April 20th, 2023 at 6 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
Made properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There goes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all. Nice to see you again.